Scenario. You wake up one morning and you have no recollection of what happened the night before. Drugs and alcohol can affect your mind in such a way. There are drugs you can take that can help you help anxiety, help mental health disorders, but there are also drugs you can take that can take your memory away from you. You can have blackouts with alcohol. There are several things that can cause that effect where you wake up and you have no recollection of what happened the night before or what you did, even how you got home. Health organizations have researched and highlight severe physical and mental impacts of substance and alcohol abuse. Understanding these effects will help us make clear decisions about what we choose to put in our bodies. Alcohol and drugs can cause severe damage to the mind and the body. My purpose today is to inform you and to get you to understand the effects of drugs and alcohol on the mind and body. I work in a substance use center, and there are a lot of people here who abuse drugs and alcohol. There are a lot of people here that have mental health disorders. There are some drugs, when taken in large amounts, that can cause mental health disorders. Also, alcohol can stimulate certain mental health disorders. There are physical health consequences and mental health impacts for alcohol and drug abuse. Drugs worsen mental illness. So drugs can cause a psychosis. If you have someone who is using a lot of drugs, say methamphetamine, and they are a long-time user, they're a needle user, and they have spent months, years ingesting this drug into their veins. After long periods of use, it can cause a drug-induced schizophrenia. Also, people when they come into recovery, often their mental health issues are elevated really highly because the effects that the drugs and alcohol have on their mind. Alcohol can disrupt your memory and your focus. And even marijuana can bring on schizophrenia. Beyond mental health, long-term substance use damages cognitive function. So there are physical, mental, and long-term effects of using drugs and alcohol. So using a drug like Xanax can affect your memory the next morning. So if you take Xanax and you're out in the community, there are people who have forgotten what they were doing and stolen and robbed places because they were not themselves. And then the next day, as they're sitting in jail, they have no recollection of anything that they've done. It can definitely cause damage to your cognitive functioning. So there are people who have a lot of history with drugs, and they have tics that are left over from long-term meth use, and facial tics, hand tics. So drugs can affect your organs. Chronic alcohol consumption can cause cirrhosis and liver damage, even liver cancer. Now there are studies saying that alcohol could be the reason for some throat and esophageal cancers. Drugs can cause damage to vital organs, the brain, the heart, and the liver. I know in the big book, it talks about having wet brain. So after long-term use of alcohol, your body is literally soaked in alcohol. So this affects your chemicals in your brain. And some people, before it was treated the way it is today, suffered serious physical disability due to alcohol. A Time magazine article on health risk of alcohol says that immune system repression is another example of alcohol abuse. It's been shown to cause immune deficiencies, compromising the body's ability to fight infections and diseases. Also, it can cause depression and anxiety. So mental health disorders that weren't there can be caused by overuse of a stimulant, overuse of alcohol. Rethink Mental Illness wrote an article about depression and anxiety and how drugs can worsen mental illness, just like drug-induced schizophrenia. So you might have somebody in your family or somebody you know that has been just fine all their life, and they start picking up a drug and abusing it, and now they have schizophrenia. For a long time, we weren't aware that one could cause the other. Schizophrenia usually starts in people that are 16 to 20 years old. Now we're seeing that drugs can cause a drug-related schizophrenia. It affects your cognitive impairment, and alcohol disrupts your memory and your focus. American Addiction Centers writes about that, saying that people who drink alcohol often seem like they have ADHD and other problems, but it's really just an effect of the alcohol they put in their body. So psychosis is a large problem, especially in rehabilitation centers, and even marijuana can be linked to schizophrenia, as I said before. Rethink Mental Illness also wrote about long-term mental health substance use and damage to our cognitive function. Heavy drinking can be related to brain damage, as I was talking before about wet brain. In the AA book, they often reference wet brain. In Bill's story, he talks about wet brain and how that was his fear of drinking so much that his brain didn't function any longer. Memory loss also accompanies long-term drinking and impairs our thinking. Of course, that happens when you have 2 drinks and you decide you want to try to drive or walk. That's why we have laws that keep us from doing those kind of things, because it automatically impairs your thought process. So after ingesting alcohol for a long-term basis, it can affect that daily. There are helplines to help provide addiction support. The SAMHSA site has a 1-800 number, 1-800-662-HELP. So we've talked about how drug and alcohol can affect our body. So this graph right here shows the millions of people that are affected by alcohol and drugs. So these numbers aren't 70, these are millions. These are millions of people who are affected by these drugs. So this is an overall substance use disorder. Is at 48.7 million people in the United States. Alcohol use disorder, 29.5 million people. You can walk into a gas station anywhere in Elizabethtown and purchase alcohol. You can walk into a gas station anywhere in Elizabethtown and purchase some sort of marijuana, synthetic marijuana, gummies. It's no problem for anybody to walk in and purchase those things now. Drug use disorder is 27.2 million. And the real shocker for me, myself, is the illicit drug use. 70.3 million people are addicted to illicit drugs. Those are large numbers. So how many people in your life have been affected by drugs and alcohol? How many people in your family circle know people that have affected their lives for drugs and alcohol? Those are big numbers. Mm-hmm. So I ask everyone who's listening to me to be part of the call for action, to seek out help for anybody that you know who is suffering from drugs or alcohol. to get them some help, to avoid the mental health disorders, to avoid long-term lasting physical effects of the mind and body. There's help out there. There is help for family members of drug addicts and alcoholics. You can go to any meeting place around here in Elizabethtown, Safe Harbor, Serenity Club, and reach out for help. There are a number of centers here in Elizabethtown that will help you with drugs and alcohol addiction. I work in one every single day. I see the effects of alcohol and drugs on the mind and body and my clients. I'm also a recovering drug addict, and I know the effects that it had on my mind and my body. When people abuse these drugs, there's this trickle-down effect in their family. We abuse drugs, it becomes a thing in our family that people don't look down on. It's just a normal way of life. So you pass that on to your children, you pass that on to your grandchildren. Mm-hmm. No one stops to think about the effects it has on their own body, let alone it could have on the future for their children and their family. So I ask that anybody out there who is suffering from drugs and alcohol, reach out to someone, get some help. Also, I ask that you talk to your family members, inform your children. Not long ago, my daughter suffered a loss at her school. There was a child there who OD'd and died from a fentanyl pill. It's not out of sight, out of mind. It is in our school system. Mm-hmm. It is in our homes. But we can fight the good fight and be informed and know that there is help out there for your loved ones, for you. So in conclusion, I want you to understand the dangers of alcohol and drug use. The first step forward is to make healthier choices for you and your family. To be informed, to inform them. Whether yourself, someone you care about, seek support, seek help. There are websites you can get a hold of. The SAMHSA website has a lot of information. It's easy to find local information. I hope you guys have learned something today about drugs and alcohol. And I pray that even if this reaches one person, that it can save a life. Thank you guys. Have a good night.